Well, well, well. I thought about deleting that video and redoing it after Aquaman came out because I felt it was important after watching The Blue Beetle and being so disappointed in a movie that really wasn't produced poorly. You saw how confused I was during that video, right? I mean, this is my hobby now. My audio, video, sim racing. This is my universe right now. Okay, and so that's it's important to me. Good entertainment. It's hard to find. You'll see my wife on Turner Classic Movies most of the time. I was going to wait until Aquaman came out, but the Blue Beetle was so formulaic. Used to be the term. It's even and what would be a higher level term for boring? um, I guess boring. I knew what was going to happen, when it was going to happen, who was going to do it, who was the good person, who was the bad. It was so, listen, when Iron Man 1 came out, if that would have been, just take the Blue Beetle the way it sits right now and replace that with the first Iron Man movie, audiences would have went insane. Maybe the same thing with Aquaman or the same thing with the Marvels, right? When it stopped being about the person. Let's go back to Superman. Okay, so I grew up with Superman. Steve Reeves committed suicide because of the role. They've always said the Superman role was a curse, killed Dean Kane's career. um, there was always it wasn't about his power. His power saved the day in the end, okay? But he was Clark Kent, and the people. It was a story about people. Now, because they've tried to do the same shtick so many times. It's hard to come up with new, fresh ideas. This is why I like books. This is why I like reading, because really the imagination is unbounded there. Here, if you're going to make a movie, you got to have financing. You got to convince some fucking executive that this is going to sell and this is who we have in the movie, and they make so much every movie, da 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 da. And it's a fucking formula. Kind of the same thing that's killing gaming. You know what I mean? We've just had enough of the outfits and powers. It's the whole, everything is about the powers and the outfit. Sometimes, from the very get go of the movie, the power will be being used for some benign reason. Um, you have to care about the characters. There has to be some reason why you're going to be emotionally entangled with what's going on the screen. I got a 120-inch screen here, just the most beautiful color, just amazing. And it's really sucks when there's a bad movie on it because it's just bigger bad, you know? These movies are done really well because they're getting so good with the CG. I remember watching Hercules or Xena with monsters that looked like they were added in afterwards almost. It was so bad. Remember those computer generated creatures? Remember those? Okay. I don't want to go back to that. But see, those creatures were so bad that they weren't shown that much, and it was more about story. Soap operas about story. You know what I mean? People want to. No, basically, this is what my page is. My page is real. nothing's going to come out of my mouth that I don't feel is a fact. Anyone who's been here for the last 15, 18 years, you know who I am. You know me, right? Those are the people who I appreciate their comments because they have my utmost respect. And if I didn't have a way of sharing this with the universe, you know what I mean? I would be the lesser for it, for sure. So, movie critique, motorcycle racer, save the East Coast of the United States. You know, most people don't know that moi and the people I worked with basically saved vast portions of the East Coast of the United States from nuclear catastrophe. I will redo that video. Of course, you know, no one wants to hear about that. I'm sure there's still more witnesses. I'm sure that, you know, my brother's still alive as far as I know. I mean, there's people that know that when we got home from the job we did, everyone said the plant's melting down. Because they're all nuclear, you know, they're up on what a nuclear plant is, what it does, what we do, all of that, you know. This is just real, see, simple, clean, truthful, honest, easy, average. And if I'm sick and tired of fucking superhero movies, everyone is. I just can't take another one unless it's different. Now, I am not saying, oh, well, here's a superhero in this universe we haven't covered yet. DC, Marvel, you know? There. Oh, here's one that we missed. It started becoming, you know, when Clark Kent turned into Superman, they were distinct people. You know what I mean? And they try to do that with the new ones. But, you know, like Tony Stark, all he does is hit a button. His uniform's already there. It's just in some microform or whatever the fuck. You know what I mean? He didn't even have to go and suit up anymore. Aquaman gets shot in the chest with a grenade. Ow. Okay, from that point on, why should we worry about him getting shot? You know what I mean? They paint themselves into corners. You know, the Blue Beetle I thought was done really well. I thought the CG was amazing. The acting was good. Acting wasn't bad. It wasn't. Okay. You can only dig from the past for so long before you need to come up with something new. Some things like Star Trek or like the Addams Family that have been around since black and white, you know what I mean? You can always kind of pull little golden little nuggets out of there every 20 years, you know what I mean? Wednesday is a good example of that. Okay, people liked it because it was different, you know what I mean? Not so superpowery, but yet fantasy at the same time, you know. Care about the people. They got you into the people. I think I could be a good movie critic because, well, I've just watched a lot of great movies and a lot of shitty movies. And I think I can tell the difference. But then that would only be within my genre, which is science fiction fantasy. From Dark Star, you know what I mean? To Star Trek. I've pretty much seen even right down to Plan 9 from Outer Space. The Brain That Wouldn't Die, Chronos. I mean, I could go back to all these, you know, I mean, I've watched pretty much every fucking science fiction movie that was ever made. I could win a contest doing science fiction trivia. I would just like to see chances being taken. Maybe not, something where studios, where you're not having to follow this fucking formula, because this is a money making business. It's not art. This isn't about art. This is about making fucking money. This is why the artists had to go on strike and the writers had to go on strike, because the fucking people that make the money on it are just a bunch of greedy fucks who don't really care about art. They don't. Love De Niro. Okay, had to get that off my chest. Whenever I see an ad for Aquaman, which has kind of got me set off on this, I'm thinking, why is that going to be such a failure? They're already predicting terrible numbers for it. I guess they do focus groups and shit, but they're predicting like 50 million the first weekend or something like that, and then dying off afterwards. So like making half back. Maybe internationally it might do better. Now, I can tell you why it's going to lose so much money, and why so many superhero movies have lost money lately. That is because the artists, the writers, these people are not in control of the product they're making. It is the fucking studios. Okay? The studios are making movie and you're just running the fucking equipment and producing what they want. You're producing the product they want. And what we need is some people to take chances. Maybe we don't need a $250 million full of CG sci-fi movie every fucking time. Some movies, in order to tell the story, you need to use special effects. Titanic would be a great example of that. Without the Titanic sinking, the end of the movie would be pretty shitty, wouldn't it? What, people would be hanging on the edge of some kind of piece of wood on a soundstage? No, and he knew that, and that's why he built such a large model to work with. Sometimes it's necessary, sometimes it's not. It's the fucking suit. They all got their suits, okay? And somewhere along the line, the suit, the superpower, and the person all became one. And there was no separation between them anymore. And that's when it started going downhill. And it's not about Amber Heard. I could give a shit about that. You know what I mean? As long as the acting's good. What, do you think Amber Heard's the first person in Hollywood to be involved in a scandal or a divorce or whatever? Come on, grow the fuck up. You know what I mean? Come on. I think we need to let the creative minds go. Let them produce what they think is a good game. Call of Duty is just a name. It's just a name in gaming. Call of Duty. It's just a name. But if you've played Call of Duty from Call of Duty 1 all the way, or 2 rather, all the way up to its latest progression, you can see there was a point where it was starting to get really, really good and we're all excited. And then it became such a big moneymaker that it started becoming formulaic. And from that point on, we rarely had any jewels in the crown. Because it became, we got to have this. Some of them were made so shitty because of the time schedules that the artists were put under that you could shoot a guy 5 times and you wouldn't even get a registration that you shot him. You know what I mean? And it's the same way in the movie industry. The guy who does the lighting, the people who build the sets, you know what I mean? the digital artist, the electricians, the fucking carpenters. If you just turned, if they had a budget of 100 million, they could probably make a movie that was way better than a studio $200 million movie that people would enjoy and like to watch. You know what I mean? And done well too. I don't know. If you haven't watched the Blue Beetle, watch it. Tell me if you get that same vibe, and then the Marvels I'll be able to stream pretty soon. And I guess Aquaman will probably be out before, end of January. Who knows? You know what I mean? It depends on how bad it flops. But they're predicting terrible fucking numbers. And it really shouldn't be that way. Okay? So I guess they're dismantling the Marvel and DC universes. You know what I mean? I guess they're going to rip it all down and start from wherever. Maybe unknown characters from unknown places. You know what I mean? Do you know I know quite a few Americans who've never watched the Doctor Who series? I mean, what do you mean you're a science fiction fan and you haven't watched any Doctor Who? You claim to be a science fiction fan and you haven't watched any Doctor Who, then you're an American science fiction fan. Okay, I had to get that off my chest again. Every time I see that Aquaman commercial now, and that article comes back in my mind about only making like $50 million, I'm like, oh shit, man, we're lost, All right.